and welcome to my channel, Murders, Mysteries, and Monsteros. My name is Tia Miranda and thank you for joining me. What I'd like to do is introduce cases that I rarely see covered and that color me intrigued, and at the end of each case I would like to present a plant and some care tips for that plant. Today's case is on a 7-year-old boy named Adrian Jones, and I wish that I had a more positive backstory on him before his future demise. Unfortunately, I don't. Some statements made by his grandmother Judy Conway were that he was a gorgeous little boy with the kindest heart, and that he had a smile that would light up a room. Also, one of his hobbies were football. I couldn't find any information on a favorite team, although I really would have liked to have added that. Adrian was born to Michael Jones and Diana Pierce, and he lived with his biological mother, Diana Pierce, in Lawrence, Kansas until he was about the age of 2, when he was found unsupervised. He was placed into the care of his tormentors, Michael, his father, age 46, and Heather, his stepmother, age 31. And at this point, I believe that the Jones lived in Missouri, and the Missouri Children's Division found evidence Adrian had been neglected in July 2013. However, he wasn't removed from the home due to the fact that they had allegedly found no signs of physical abuse. The Missouri Child Welfare System attempted to provide in-home services to the Jones family, but within weeks they refused to cooperate, stopped attending appointments, and informed them that their services were no longer required because they now resided in Kansas. When the Jones family moved to Kansas, the Missouri Children's Welfare Services sent their concerns regarding the abuse in the Jones home. If those reports were ever followed up on is unknown. However, later, Kansas Children's Welfare received 10 phone calls regarding the abuse witnessed at the Jones residence, with statements such as, "The mom beats the daylights out of the kids." They had seen Heather beat and choke Adrian and had witnessed Adrian eat food from a trash can. Each time these reports were investigated, though, nothing was found awry, despite Adrian himself telling them that he had to stand for hours out in frigid temperatures, even sleep out there, and that he had stole food from a trash can and was being locked in a closet at night. 2 years before Adrian's death, he would have been aged 5. He told a police officer and a Missouri Children's Division worker, quote, "My daddy hits me in the head, punches my stomach, and my mom pulls on my ears and it hurts." Adrian told them that Michael hit him so hard that a tiny bone came out, and that he was being locked in his bedroom and withheld food. And Adrian was homeschooled, so his hell never ended. He never got to make friends or have teachers or learn like everyone else. He was day in, day out, handcuffed and shackled to a bathroom stall. He also suffered from developmental disabilities. He had PTSD and reactive attachment disorder. Adrian lived in what was called, quote, "a filthy house of horrors," end quote. Adrian lived with 7 other children in the house. There were bullet holes throughout the walls, and the floors were littered with hardcore porn, syringes, rat poison, and dead mice. There was a surveillance system set up throughout the home showing all angles, and this surveillance system is what recorded the torture and death of Adrian Jones. The footage documented shows the abuse and torture over the course of a 9-month period. However, he was placed into their custody at age 2, so we can only imagine how long the abuse actually went on or what was actually going on. So right here I'd like to put a timestamp in because I don't want to put any footage in. The footage haunted me, and I couldn't even make it through the 2-minute video about Adrian. In 2018, whenever I found the video about Adrian on YouTube. And so I just want to add photos so that you can get an idea of what he was actually going through, but I don't want to add any footage. In the footage documented over 9 months, shows Adrian beat with fists or objects such as broomsticks, forced to stand in the stagnant, disgusting water of a swimming pool, submerged to his neck for hours in frigid temperatures. Photographs depicted on Michael and Heather's laptop show Adrian with cutting boards strapped to his front and back, forcing him to stand straight upright. Some days he would be strapped to an inversion table, other days stunned for up to 20 seconds with a stun gun, locked behind a plywood door, in a shower, constantly shackled or handcuffed. One photograph depicts Adrian's shredded and bloody lips from him attempting to chew his way out of his plywood prison. His ankles were bent out of shape from being beaten. Other photos show the last days of Adrian Jones' tragic little life. Adrian standing in the shower stall, eyes sunken in, malnourished, and teeth neglected. Adrian was taunted with food. They would stuff a bar of soap in his mouth and set food down knowing that he was hungry. In another recording, you can see him desperately attempting to drink from a cup as he shivers with his hands bound behind his back. Adrian's stepmother Heather would often show her aggression towards Adrian on social media sites such as Facebook, and in one post in reference to a Walking Dead scene, she commented, quote, "Walking Dead, look at the pretty flowers, yeah, I'm about to pull that shit," end quote. This was on Christmas Day, 2014. Later that day, she posted commenting, quote, "I can't shoot him unfortunately, but I can work the shit out of him until I feel better," end quote. And then several days later, she made a joke post that's not really a joke. It's just a comment that she made. And that was, quote, "I might have to feed some pigs a body," end quote. There were alarms placed on the fridge and food cupboards, so Adrian couldn't steal food, and he ultimately starved to death. One child heard Adrian scream, "I'm going to die," and Heather yelled back, "Suck it up." Adrian died alone in the shower, and they left his body there for 2 weeks. Michael and Heather went out and purchased pigs and intentionally waited a certain period of time so that the pigs would be hungry, and then they threw Adrian's body to them. On November 24th, 2015, police were called to the Jones residence in the 5200 block of North and 99th Street for a domestic disturbance. Michael was charged with aggravated assault and aggravated battery. While there, police discovered Adrian had been missing for several months, and that's also when they discovered the surveillance system that was throughout the house, and it was a total of 30 cameras showing all angles. A day later, on November 25th, 2015, and after Heather's confession, I think because Heather confessed that Adrian died on September 28th, and I've seen other articles say it was between September and October, but she confessed that it was September 28th, and then she said that shortly thereafter, Michael went out and purchased the pigs. Adrian's remains were found scattered near the pig pen at the Kansas City, Kansas home they rented. Michael and Heather Jones were sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years. Detective Stuart Littlefield choked back tears describing Adrian's case. He said that Adrian's murder was the worst he had seen in 23 years of policing. Diane Keach, a former deputy director of DCF, quit after nearly 2 years on the job due to mishandling of cases such as Adrian's. Diane Keach stated, quote, "I've personally reviewed numerous deaths in Kansas where we've missed it," end quote. She told Action 41 News, "Child death cases are often kept secret from the public." During her time at the department, the agency's attorney directed her not to document anything related to child deaths, only verbal conversations by phone, and if something were handwritten, she was instructed to shred it afterwards. Action 41 and Judy Conway, which is Adrian's grandmother, were denied several requests to the department for Adrian's records, and a judge had sealed Adrian's records. A 2004 law enacted in Kansas stated files become public when a child is killed or nearly killed. Despite this law, information about these cases are rarely released. In September 2017, Adrian's oldest sister, maternal grandmother Judy Conway, and biological mother Diana Pierce filed a lawsuit seeking $25 million for punitive damages, claiming that social workers didn't permanently remove Adrian despite numerous calls and reports of abuse over several years. Adrian's grandmother, Judy Conway, says what they did to Adrian is horrific, and she lives in pain and agony every day. and I have seen some of the interviews with her. It's really sad. She, in one interview, she talks about how she still dreams about it, and it's just so tragic. It really is. Adrian's grandmother, Judy Conway, said that she did want custody of Adrian and the other children, but the court had granted custody to Michael Jones, and she wonders what Adrian's life would have been like had things gone another way. And I wanted to say his name a lot because I've seen the articles on there of him being the boy fed to pigs, and that's just so sad to me. It really is. When you search him, like when you search Adrian Jones, it comes up and each article says the boy fed to pigs, pretty much. And it's sad to me because he was a son, he was a grandson, he was a brother. He has a name, and his name is Adrian Jones. He was a sweet little boy who met a tragic ending. And I hope that wherever he is now, he is happy and he feels comforted and loved. And every single time that I revisit his case, I cry. I cry every single time. I cry every single time like the first time. It's the same every time. I've never met him, but it's just, he seemed like such a precious little fella. And that's just so awful. But you can tell me what you think about the case down in the comments, and I will take requests on other cases. I have a couple in mind that I do want to do, and I wasn't going to take any requests on the plant cases, but I think that I will, because even if I don't have the plant, I can look it up and definitely find out the plant care for you, and maybe I would even be interested in purchasing it as well. So that would be cool. And so now I'm going to introduce the plant that I chose for today. The plant that I chose today was the Heartleaf philodendron. And the reason that I chose this plant, I'm going to show you up close. My lighting's terrible. My lighting's terrible because I'm bored, but it's okay because it's a very humbling experience. But anyway, okay, so this is the Heartleaf philodendron, and it's also known as a green philodendron. The light requirements. This plant can do well in low light, but if you want to see faster growth, medium to brighter indirect light. Okay, and then water requirements. I always get parts with drainage holes, and I just run water all the way through. Every time, just all the way through, and I always let everything dry out between waterings because they do so much better that way if I just let them dry completely out. And I totally get it if you're a person who loves to water their plants, and when I first got my plants, that's all I wanted to do was water them, but they've thrived so much since I backed off so much. Okay, so also, okay, soil. For soil, you can do a peat perlite mix. I think it's perlite. I think I said that right. But I just used a regular potting mix for this. Feeding, you feed them once a month through spring and summer, and you can use liquid or organic. I was using, I'm not going to say what I was using because I don't think it's very popular, but I'll probably go the organic route soon. And also, I just wanted to say, like, I don't know if this is like a thing or not, but I always make sure to water them first before, I think I heard this somewhere. Make sure to water before you feed them, instead of mixing the food and water together and just giving them that when a plant's truly thirsty. Water them before feeding, and that's what I do, and they do fine that way if I water them first. I think that I read that if you give them if it's really thirsty and you give them the food and the water at the same time, that it can burn leaves maybe. I'm not sure, maybe. Another thing I wanted to mention about this plant is problems that you can have with this plant. like brown tips. If you're getting brown tips, it could be a sign of over or underwatering. And although they're not really problematic, a couple of other things is mosaic virus, root rot, or fungal bacterial leaf spots. Like I said, they're not really they're rarely problematic. And the pests to look out for are mealybugs, scale, and spider mites. And I had mealybugs once. They were given to me though. They were given to me. So I'm not good with succulents, and my sister gave me a succulent and it had mealybugs and she didn't know it. And at first I didn't know it because I was a new plant mom. I didn't know anything about. And also they, you know, there's these little white fuzzies on the cactus anyway. And I legit thought that's what it was, and it was not that. It was a very prolonged infestation of mealybugs. And I lost the cactus. And I've had PTSD ever since. Okay, but I haven't had them since, and I hope I don't get them again. So I chose this plant today for its shape. It's in this cute little potter with the little triangles on it. And they're little heart-shaped leaves, so it's like love growing up the little dowel. And I thought that was a good plant to choose to share some love, especially for such a horrific story. Thank you again for joining me, and if you have any interest in true crime or plants, I'll see you soon.